Hey everybody, it's Michelle and I want to go ahead and show you guys my review for the dress that I sewed for the royal wedding so long. And here it is. So I went with an embroidery mesh that I've underlined with organza, and then the slip is just a basic lining material and some lace trim detail both on the neckline and the hem along with the sleeves. So this dress is the dress that I felt like really gave me a big push when it came to my sewing abilities. And here's the reasons why. I've never sewn with embroidery mesh before. Sheer fabrics, and even the pattern that I chose, which is the Spoke 8943, is specifically geared towards couture sewing. So that was a learning process, and I have to be honest, I was a little bit impatient and frustrated because there was a couple of huge mistakes I made through this process, but in the end I got a beautiful dress. So let me go ahead and explain to you what happened. So I saw this dress on Pinterest, and it's from Anthropologie, and it's very similar to where it had this very colorful embroidery mesh, and I knew I wanted to make a dress similar to that. So when I went to Joann's, I saw this fabric and I got it. So now the next thing was to search for a pattern for the So Long royal wedding So Long. And I went through Vogue's patterns and picked out 4 patterns that I really liked. And I picked one out and I came home, read through it, made my adjustments on the flat pattern, and then realized that this pattern was made for stretch fabrics. How I didn't see that, I have no idea. I was floored that I made what I thought was like a dumb mistake, because I remember specifically looking at all these patterns and looking at the fabric requirements, and somehow I missed it on this pattern. So I went back and ended up getting this Vogue pattern. And the cool thing about this is that this has Claire Schaefer's couture techniques, where she gives you basically how to do couture sewing in this pattern. And I finally was like double checking everything, making sure that everything was exactly what I needed. And underlining this fabric was scary because it was so slippery. I ended up using a walking foot to help me along, and base stitching everything was a big help, and just having a lot of patience, which I don't usually have, but that's okay, that's a different story. So I decided to make sure the fit was fine, and if you follow me on Insta stories, I end up getting into learning how to fit. So I've gotten a couple books, and one in particular that I was very fond of was a complete photo guide to the perfect fitting by, I think her name is Sarah Vablen. I think that's how you pronounce it. And so I prepped my muslin for this dress, made all the alterations needed. Once I felt comfortable with the way the dress looked, I went ahead and cut the fabric. And it did use quite a bit of fabric. I think the fabric requirements on this is about like 4.5 yards. And if you're trying to pattern match, you'll probably need a lot more than that. But got the fit just right and then started sewing. And I do have to say though that I understood why they had you do the seams the way they did, which was to trim them down to like 1/8 and edge stitch them. But I thought like somehow it was going to be concealed, and it wasn't. And so when I also continued on with the pattern, it also said to cover the shoulder seams with bias binding, and I thought, oh, is that how they cover up the seams so they're not peeking, so you're not able to see through them, and it's not. It's because it's helping with the roughness. So if you cut mesh or organza and you leave the edges raw, they do scratch on the skin. And so I found it was a lot easier to wear when you had the bias binding on them. And so this pattern also has you thread trace everything, which I didn't completely do 100%. I only thread traced the darts because that was the only way I could be able to, you know, make out the darts and sew them. Because I underlined it, the pieces with organza using base stitches, that pretty much held the fabric together and was easy enough. So that was a little fun to be able to thread trace and do all that. I understand why they did it, but I was too lazy. Fast forward, I'm almost completely done with the dress. The only thing I had left to do was to install the zipper. And in the pattern, it tells you to fold over the edge of the fabric, press it, and then install in the zipper tape individually. I didn't listen. I was too lazy, and I ended up base stitching the edges closed and installing the zipper and seam ripping, you know, the base stitches open. And I end up seam ripping the actual fabric because with the combination of the mesh, the organza, and the black thread, you couldn't really tell what was what. And I was so mad. I was like, in a way, kind of like yelling at myself, like, how could you do that? You were in the last step. But once I calmed down, I realized that all I had to do was just fix it by edge stitching it, and it's fine. I mean, no one can really notice unless they're up close looking at the dress. And everything else was fine. I mean, it's still functional. So I want to say that this dress was like the big push that got me to the next level, and I'm excited and I'm so grateful that they actually made a pattern like this to teach you more advanced techniques that you could possibly consider. So thank you for your time for going over this dress, and I hope to see you guys next time. Bye.